video is sponsored by NTP.
NTP is the leading online training provider for professionals in the transport and logistics industry. NTP have a range including Transport Manager's CPC. To find out more and to get your 10% discount, click the link below and use code TruckerWheel10.
Well, it's a lovely, beautiful Monday morning. Not. Storm Eunice has been and gone. Now we're on to Storm Franklin. Is there some link to US presidents? Anyone's guess. So, this morning, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about truck drivers and how we survive with storms and what measures we take and all that kind of good stuff, which kind of leads to truck drivers being successful in adverse weather conditions. That's the best word for it, adverse weather conditions. Everybody by now will have heard about Storm Eunice and Unic. What is it? Storm Unic, something like that anyway. And then Storm Franklin that's followed on afterwards. So, according to the weather reports, this morning Storm Franklin will be in until about lunchtime. So, truck drivers have an interesting job, and depending what type of trailer you've got on, depends on how you manage what you're driving and how you're driving and how you manage with the storm conditions. So we'll do the two different extremes and then we'll look at stuff in between. So flatbeds, generally on the whole, empty flatbed, stormy conditions, not even going to notice it. Your cab might get thrown around a little bit, but actually, if you've got an empty flatbed, you're not going to notice any difference. God, this traffic's bad. You're not really going to notice any difference as you're driving down the road. Not something to be concerned about. Just thunder on, crack on. And then you've got the other end of the scale, where you've got double deckers, and those are the twin height trailers, 16.1, 16.2 in some cases. That's height, feet, 16 foot 2 inches high. And they've got solid sides on them, and yeah, they're a nightmare. In high winds, they are a absolute nightmare. One thing you do not want in high winds is a weighted load on the top deck and nothing on the bottom deck. That is a disaster waiting to happen. The second worst scenario is then having an empty solid side double decker. That is possibly the most frightening thing to drive in anything more than light winds. Oof, they are horrible. And then moving on, solid box frames, solid box trailers like your fridge boxes, that kind of thing. They're a bit more sensibly heighted, but they're still a solid box. One of those empty is a nightmare. Wind catches the side of it, and no doubt you will have seen on YouTube, if you watch any other videos, and I think there was even a section on it on the BBC about trucks where you can see the wind's got hold of the trailer and the trailer's either being pushed into another lane sideways, or you can actually see sections, the wheels on the windward side coming off the ground. And once the back of the trailer goes, it'll get to a certain point, then a gust will take it over, and it's a nightmare. And generally on the whole, it'll be in the same place. You'll get one go over, and then you get another one follow it, and you sort of end up with them stacked like dominoes on their sides, lying down having a snooze on the side of the road. Not a good place to be. What can you do as a driver? Well, not drive. Not drive in high winds is the obvious solution. as the driver, you are responsible for what happens to your vehicle and your load. And if you deem that it is not safe to drive, you are well within your rights to pull off the road and stop. So that's the first thing. If you don't want to do that, the second thing is slow down. Very slowly. Slowly does it. Give the truck a chance to deal with the wind. Now, in certain wind conditions, doesn't matter how slow you go, it'll blow it over. I'm sure you've all seen, if you drive up and down the motorways, you'll have seen on the side of the roads where people have used trailers for advertising, where the high winds have hit those trailers because they're in exposed locations. I'm sure you will have seen where those trailers have fallen over. Yeah, they do fall over without being moved, they just go. And then, so those two things you can do. Those are box trailers. Now let's move on to curtain siders. Now this is a bit more interesting. As you know, I drive mainly curtain siders. Most of my time is spent dragging curtain siders about the place. And there's a number of things you can do. So if you're loaded, key thing number one, make sure your curtains are as tight as you can physically get them. That means pulled front to back, and that also means that you... Jesus, in my blind spot. Get out of my blind spot. Wow. Not sure if you noticed that, but as I went to go into the middle lane, I checked my blind spot and I could not see that car. He appeared from nowhere. How the heck I missed him, I don't know, but I can tell you, I spotted him at the last second on my blind spot camera. Shows they do work. Anyway, oof. God, it's given me a bit of a heart attack. Anyway, right, where were we? Curtain siders. Curtain siders in wind. Now you can hear the wind level outside. It's very high. I am loaded at the moment, so I have done my curtains up as tight as I can physically get them, and I am sticking to a sensible speed. Today the wind is blustery, but it's nowhere near as high as it was the other day, so I am able to keep going, and as I feel the wind drop, I'm able to put my foot down a bit more, so I'm not too worried about the wind today. On Friday, when I was coming back from up north, that was a very different kettle of fish. It was horrendous driving conditions, and at one point I was down to about 40 miles an hour, or no, it was even lower than that, 30 miles an hour on the M6, because as I was driving down the road, the truck was being thrown everywhere. Nothing I could do about it, just had to take it slow, which we did, and we managed to achieve our journey safely. That's all you can ask. Now, curtain siders, when they're loaded, if you've got weight on the trailer, generally on the whole, they're a lot more stable. They'll sit. They will blow about a bit, and you will get pushed around, but as long as you've got a reasonable weight on there, you should be okay. When curtain siders get really dangerous is when they're empty. When the curtains are loose, and you're in crosswinds, that's when it gets scary. Now, you may or may not have seen it where curtain siders have been driving down the road and the curtains are tied back, the back doors are open, and they've got straps over the roof, or they're using the internal straps. So a curtain sider requires the curtains to maintain the integrity of the roof. There you go, there's some big words from me, isn't there? If you pull the curtains to the back, which is sensible to do in high winds, and I will do a video on how to do that coming up. If you pull the curtains to the back, you must make sure that you either put internal straps down along the sides of the trailer so that you keep the roof maintained in its position. One thing you don't want the roof to do is pop upwards, which is what can happen, because what then happens is the middle of the roof goes up, the front and the back kink inwards, and you destroy the trailer. You'll not recover it from that. So either using internal straps down along the side, like you would if you've got pallets on, or throwing normal straps right the way over the top and down, and strapping down to the side rave. So if you don't know what the side rave is, that's the name given to the rail, piece of metal on either side that your curtain clips go and clip under. Okay, that's important. That's really important. That gives the trailer structure where you've taken it away with the curtains. Now, one of the mistakes that people do sometimes make is when they tie their curtains back, they think it's acceptable to use the standard buckles on the curtains. You're just going to cut straight in front of me, aren't you? I thought you might. Oh, no, you're not. You're just going to trundle along there. Anyway, yeah, so using internal clips underneath to hold the curtains in place. It will work if you're absolutely desperate and you have no other alternatives. If you have no straps on board, it is a last ditch option, but I can't recommend it. The best way, and the only way to do it really, is to pull the curtains to the back, open the back doors right the way around, secure them in place with the curtains inside. You then take a strap, a ratchet strap, and you circle the curtains and the door. This does two things. Firstly, it stops the main big bar which goes in at the front of your curtains from flopping about the place and falling out to the side of the road and all that kind of stuff. Secondly, it actually stops the curtain flogging. So that's when the curtain does this as you're going down the road. Okay, and it stops the curtain destroying itself. Two major factors. Without the door, you will find that if you don't have the doors open all the way, protecting the curtain, you won't have much curtain left when you get back, especially with older curtains that are a bit more worn. The last thing you must do, and this is something that I learned, unfortunately, the hard way the first time I did it, was when you've secured the doors round, you actually have to put a ratchet strap round the doors across the entire width of the trailer. If you don't do that, the guide bars that hold the doors open, or the little straps that go underneath, will tear out of the doors, and you will end up with the doors swinging open, okay, and they rip the curtains off the raves, off the rails in the top. So yeah, really important. Make sure you put a strap all the way around. Do that, you can then drive down the road with effectively a flatbed, and that makes a huge difference in crosswinds. And if you've not got a load on, you're towing an empty trailer and you're in high crosswinds, it's the only safe way to do it. It's all judgment call. Anyway, that having all been said, now we're in Bristol. We're going to just fight our way around the roads of Bristol. We've still got about 16 miles to go, so we're going to the southern side of Bristol. I have to say, this area of Bristol is a challenge in a truck. you do need to take up quite a bit of road in order to be able to get round some of the corners like this one here. So once this black car's come through, I'm going to kill the other lane like that. Stop anybody coming down my outside. My trailer's stopping anyone coming down the inside. I can get around the corner without hitting anybody. Nice and safe. Now, further on round, I can hear an ambulance or a police car somewhere, but I cannot see it. Ah, there it is in front of us on the other side. That's okay. So, other things to be aware of when you're driving a high-sided vehicle, high winds, is when you're in cities and towns. And this is something that sometimes doesn't always get brought up and people don't really think about. In extraordinarily high winds, something that can be forgotten about, which can be a disaster, is when you're driving along and you've got a side wind and it's whistling between the buildings, and you can be on a road like this where you've got buildings on either side. You can suddenly come to a cross street and there'll be a gust of wind that will blow the truck onto the pavement or into the oncoming traffic or next lane, depending on where you're positioned. Okay, so you must be aware of that. Or like here, there's a bridge. That's a classic example. I'm going slow enough, it's not a problem, but where you're, say, some sections in London, you really can get blown around, and it's it can be very unnerving, because suddenly you can find yourself heading for the pavement with pedestrians on. Not good. Anyway, yeah, so right now I think I am going to focus on driving in Bristol, and I'll catch up with you in a little bit.